Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
By the time my wife told me I was married to the ocean, I already knew our marriage was taking on water. I just didn't realize yet that I'd be the one patching the hull while she was poking holes in it from the other side. My name's Commander Jack Avery, United States Navy, 42 years old and more comfortable on a steel deck in the middle of nowhere than in a crowded bar on a Friday night. I've spent most of my adult life in uniform. My skin is permanently about 3 shades lighter where my watch sits. My knees crack when I climb ladders now, but I can still get around a ship blindfolded if you give me about 10 minutes. I'm not a SEAL or some movie hero. I'm a line officer. I manage people, operations, and headaches. I write so many reports that I'm pretty sure my right hand is going to evolve into a keyboard someday. For a long time, though, I had something bigger than rank or ribbons. I had Elise. Elise was a nurse at the base hospital. She was the first person I ever saw argue with a full-bird colonel about how often his guys needed flu shots and when. She was small, fast, and terrifying with a syringe. We met when I was a lieutenant, standing in line for mandatory vaccines with a bunch of guys pretending they weren't afraid of needles. She stepped up to me, checked my file, and said, "Commander Avery, right?" "Lieutenant," I corrected automatically, "because rank does that to you." She smirked. "Well, you sit still like a commander." Then she jabbed me in the arm without warning. "Jesus," I hissed. "You can't say that on base," she said. "But you can curse me out if you want. They all do." I laughed, and she smiled, and that was the beginning. She liked that I had a plan. I liked that she had a spine. We got married 2 years later. Beach wedding, small, friends and family, my best friend tours as best man, and more white uniforms than a recruiting poster. For 12 years, I believed we'd figured it out, the balance between the Navy and home. The schedule of deployments, homecomings, missed anniversaries, and long-distance video calls from weird time zones. She used to joke, "You belong to the ocean, but at least it sends you back to me." Turns out, that line had an expiration date. The first sign things were shifting was her phone. For years, Elise had been the kind of person who'd lose her phone under a couch cushion for 4 hours. She'd leave it on the kitchen counter, buzzing with family group chats and Instagram notifications about puppies. One day I realized I hadn't seen it lying around for a while. It was always in her pocket. Or face down on the table. Or in her hand, screen angled away. I noticed, because you notice when you spent most of your adult life reading body language and trying to figure out if a sailor is lying about why he missed watch. "You on call?" I asked once, nodding at the phone she kept checking at dinner. "Always, basically," she said, taking another quick look. "Staffing is a nightmare." "Okay, fair. The hospital is a pressure cooker. People get weird about their phones when lives literally depend on them." Then came the extra shifts. "I'll be at the hospital late," she said one Tuesday night. "We're short 2 nurses. Don't wait up." "Okay," I said. "You want me to bring you food? I can swing by with something." "No," she said quickly. "They're feeding us. It's fine." She came home around midnight, showered, and fell asleep without much conversation. I chalked it up to exhaustion. Then it happened again. And again. Different nights. Same pattern. Sometimes I'd ask, "How was the shift?" "Busy," she'd say. "I'm tired. Can we not talk about work?" I get that. I don't always want to relive my day either. But something in her tone felt less "I'm tired" and more "I'm hiding." When I'd get home from the ship after a 24-hour duty, she used to greet me at the door and say, "You smell like diesel and old coffee. It's disgusting. Come here," and hug me anyway. Recently, I'd open the door and hear, "Can you not slam that?" I just sat down. Little things. You don't file them as evidence yet. You just file them in that mental folder labeled The truth got past the folder the way most inconvenient truths do, through your friends, in a place you didn't expect to be ambushed by reality. In my case, that place was the base gym. I was on the treadmill, half running, half trying not to blow out my knee, when Torres hopped onto the one next to me. We did the usual guy nod. Headphones out. Water bottle sip. "Hey, man," he said, sounding weirdly cautious for a guy who once dared me to eat a 4-day-old MRE for $20. "What's up?" I asked. He stared straight ahead at the wall like he was reading a script there. "You and Elise doing okay?" he asked. That's the kind of question you only ask if you already know the answer. I slowed the treadmill down. "Why?" He exhaled. "Look, I don't want to be in your business, okay? But I saw her downtown last week. At that bar off base. O'Malley's." He paused. "With who?" I asked, though I already had a guess. "Burke," he said. "The doc. Navy medical. Lieutenant commander. The one with the expensive watch." "Lots of people go to bars," I said carefully. "It's a small town." "Yeah," he said. They were at the same table. Alone. And it didn't look like we were just grabbing a quick beer in our scrubs alone. I felt that sinking feeling you get right before the ship hits something. "Tories," I said, "why are you telling me this now?" "Because I thought maybe it was a one-off," he said. "But I saw them again yesterday. Outside the hospital. And this time he was touching her shoulder. And she wasn't pulling away." He made a face, like he hated every word. I stepped off the treadmill before my legs gave out. "Thanks," I said. It sounded like I had gravel in my throat. "You want me to talk to him?" he offered. "Last thing I need is a parking lot brawl on base," I said. "I'll handle it." He nodded. "For what it's worth, man, I'm sorry. You don't deserve that." "Appreciate it," I said. I went home early that day. Sat at the kitchen table. Stared at the fridge like it owed me answers. When Elise got in that night, I had already run through 6 different versions of the conversation in my head. Some ended with yelling. Some ended with crying. One ended with me flipping the table, which wasn't realistic because it was heavy and I'm not 22 anymore. She walked in, kissed my cheek mechanically, and tossed her bag on the counter. "Long shift?" I asked. "Yeah," she said. "I'm dead. I'm going to shower." "Did you see Burke?" I asked. She froze. Just for a second. "At the hospital?" she said. "Sure. Why?" "Torres saw you at O'Malley's," I said. "Last week. And yesterday. Said it looked more like a date than triage." Her jaw clenched. "Is he spying on me?" she asked. "What, you have your buddies following me around now?" "O'Malley's is not exactly a secret CIA bunker," I said. "You're not hard to see." She rolled her eyes. "We grabbed a drink. We were off duty. It's harmless." "Is it?" I asked. She threw her hands up. "Oh my God, Jack, you're being ridiculous. I work with him. We talk. We blow off steam. You're allowed to have female colleagues, I'm allowed to have male ones." I could have pushed right then. Pressed. Demanded. Instead, I said, "Okay. But if there's something you need to tell me, now would be a good time." She looked at me. Really looked. Weighed her options. And then she went with the nuclear line. "You're married to the ocean," she said slowly. "Not to me." It hit harder than I expected. Maybe because it was brutally honest in a way that had nothing to do with Burke. "I know what I signed up for," she said. "I thought I could handle it. The deployments. The nights alone. The sorry, honey, the ship's delayed another week. But I can't. Not anymore." "So the solution is what?" I asked. "Drinks with the base doctor?" "The solution," she said, "is me feeling like someone actually chooses me first, for once." I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding, sadness and anger duking it out. "You knew what this life was when you married me," I said. "You liked it then." "I liked the idea of it," she snapped. "Of the brave Navy husband doing important things. But the reality is, you're gone all the time. And even when you're home, half of you is still on that ship." "I'm doing my job," I said quietly. "The one that keeps the lights on and the country from falling apart more than it already is." She shook her head. "I'm tired of coming second," she said. We stared at each other across the table, the gulf between us feeling wider than the Pacific. Then she grabbed her bag again. "I'm staying at my sister's tonight," she said. "I need space." "Take it," I said. The door closed behind her. I sat there, staring at a salt shaker, wondering how a man who can coordinate a complex watch schedule and emergency response plan couldn't figure out how to keep a marriage from capsizing. Here's the thing about being in the Navy, you get used to compartmentalizing. Heat in one space? Shut the hatch. Flooding? Seal the door. Keep the ship afloat. I did the same with my feelings. Put them in a watertight compartment labeled "Deal with later," and went back to work. Then, one evening, that compartment blew open. Elise left her tablet on the coffee table. She'd logged into our shared email account earlier to check some bill notices. I picked it up to look up a recipe. I was trying to prove to myself I could cook something besides boxed mac and cheese and grilled chicken. When the screen lit, I saw the emails. Not to her sister. Not to friends. To Burke. Subject lines I didn't want to see. About last night. "We need to be careful, but I don't want to stop. I transferred what I owe you. Same account as before." Transferred. I'm not a detective, but even I know that when your wife is talking about transfers with a guy she's not married to, something's off. I clicked. Messages scrolled by. Flirty little asides about meeting in the back hallway, complaints about Jack and his beloved ship, jokes about rank that made me want to bleach my eyeballs. And then there were attachments. Screenshots of what looked like reimbursement forms. Payments from his personal account to hers, for helping sort out the mess with the off-the-books clinic expenses. Clinic expenses. He was using her to move money around, cover his tracks, and make it look legitimate. So not only was she cheating, she was also dabbling in what smelled an awful lot like financial misconduct on a U.S. military installation. You know that moment when something inside you just clicks? That was mine. All the chaos, the hurt, the humiliation condensed into one sharp, solid thought. Discipline is my shield. It was something one of my academy instructors used to say while we did endless drills. You can't control the storm. You can control how you brace. I put the tablet down. Went into my office. Closed the door. Then I did what the Navy trained me to do better than almost anything else. I documented. Over the next week, I collected everything without breaking any laws or hacking anything. I didn't need to. They were both sloppy. I printed the emails that came through our shared account. Took screenshots of bank transfers that showed up in our joint financial overview, small amounts, but frequent. I copied her schedule from the hospital, then cross-checked it with access logs a buddy in base security quietly showed me when I asked, hypothetically, if someone wanted to confirm comings and goings. How would they do that? Badge swipes told a story, Elise entering restricted areas she didn't need to be in. At hours that didn't match her double shifts. Burke's patterns matched. Same places, similar times. Meanwhile, nurse friends of hers were posting photos from nights out that Elise claimed she'd been stuck in the OR. She was tagged at restaurants, breweries, nowhere near the base. I put it together like a jigsaw puzzle. The picture was ugly, but clear. Personal betrayal. Professional misconduct. Potential fraud. Cool. Now it wasn't just my broken heart. It was my responsibility as an officer. We get a lot of mandatory training about reporting wrongdoing. Most people sit through it thinking, this will never really apply to me. Turns out, sometimes it does. In the most messed up way possible. Elise thought the Navy would bury it. They take care of their own, she'd said once, bragging about how someone she knew made something go away. She was right about one thing, the Navy does take care of its own. Sometimes that means patching a career. Sometimes it means ripping it out by the roots. I didn't tell Elise I was going to Naval Criminal Investigative Service or Naval Inspector General or Internal Affairs, whatever label you want for the people who investigate bad behavior in uniform and around it. I didn't announce anything. I simply made an appointment with Naval Internal Affairs on base. The office was in a nondescript building, the kind you walk past 100 times without noticing. The agent who met me looked exactly like what you'd imagine, mid-40s, haircut that could slice bread, expression like he'd heard every lie in the book and catalogued them by category. "Commander Avery," he said, shaking my hand. "What can we do for you?" I set the folder on his desk. "I'd like to report potential misconduct involving a base physician and a civilian employee of the base hospital," I said. "One of them is my wife." His eyebrows twitched just slightly. "Understood. You realize making a false report is itself a violation." "I've spent 20 years in the Navy," I said. "Lying to protect myself isn't in my toolkit." He opened the folder. "Read." Scrolled through the USB drive files I'd included. His face didn't change much, but the atmosphere in the room shifted. "How did you obtain this?" he asked. "Shared email account," I said. "Shared financial dashboard. A security buddy showed me the badge log, but I didn't copy his system. Just wrote down the timestamps. Everything else is from accounts I have legal access to." He nodded. "And your motive?" he asked. "I have to ask." "My motive is that a Navy officer and a base employee are violating regulations on government time, on government property, and using government resources," I said. "My personal life is a mess, yes. But if I wanted revenge, I'd just send this to her mother." He cracked half a smile at that, then sobered. "We'll conduct our own investigation," he said. "You need to understand, once this leaves your hands, you don't control what happens. Are you prepared for fallout? For your name to be tangentially attached to whatever comes out?" "I'd rather be the guy who reported a fire early than the guy who watched the ship burn," I said. He nodded once. "Understood, Commander," he said. "We'll be in touch." Internal Affairs works the way the ocean erodes rock, slowly at first, then all at once. They interviewed people quietly. Pulled access logs officially this time. Subpoenaed financial records where necessary. They talked to Elise. They talked to Burke. They talked to half the hospital, by the sound of the rumors. Elise came home one afternoon, furious. "They dragged me into some office," she snapped, dropping her bag on the floor. "Asked me all kinds of questions. Who I spend time with at work. Why my badge shows me entering the pharmacy wing off shift. If I've ever handled unofficial medication orders. It was humiliating." "Oh?" I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Any idea what triggered that?" She glared at me. "You did," she said. "You went to them, didn't you?" I met her eyes. "I reported misconduct that affects the integrity of the Navy and the base," I said. "Yes." "They're not going to do anything," she hissed. "You know that, right? They don't want scandal. They'll sweep it under the rug. Protect the doctor, shut me up, and tell everyone to move on." "That what Burke told you?" I asked. "Or did you come up with that yourself?" She crossed her arms. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're just making yourself look pathetic. Airing our dirty laundry in front of command. Better than stealing all the clean laundry and selling it out the back door," I said. She snorted. "You won't win." "That's the thing," I said quietly. "This isn't about me winning." A month later, Internal Affairs called me back in. The same agent sat across from me, this time with a file that had grown significantly thicker. "Commander Avery," he said, "we appreciate your cooperation. We wanted to inform you of the preliminary outcomes." I braced unconsciously, like I was expecting the ship to rock. "We found sufficient evidence of misconduct on the part of Lieutenant Commander Burke," he said. "Inappropriate relationships with a base employee, misuse of government resources, and irregularities in certain medical financial processes. He will be demoted and reassigned to a non-patient-facing role while further administrative action proceeds." It was the politest way I'd ever heard anyone say, "His career is on fire and we're just deciding how much water to throw on it." "And Mrs. Avery?" I asked. He paused. "While she is a civilian," he said, "her position at the base hospital requires adherence to specific ethical standards. Given her participation in falsifying or misrepresenting records, and her involvement in prohibited relationships on base, the recommendation is termination of employment. That decision has been communicated to hospital administration. I sat there, hands folded. I didn't feel joy. Or gloating. Just a tired sadness. "And me?" I asked. "Any implications for my career?" He shook his head. "You followed procedure," he said. "You reported information in good faith. You did not misuse your authority. Honestly, Commander, you're the one who did this the right way." He closed the file. "For what it's worth," he added, "most people don't have the stomach to report something this close to home. It's commendable." "Thanks," I said. "It doesn't feel commendable. It just feels necessary." "Necessary is usually what commendable feels like in the moment," he said. The job went first. The marriage followed close behind. Elise moved out not long after she was let go from the hospital. It wasn't some dramatic scene with suitcases thrown down the stairs. It was quiet. Methodical. She packed her clothes, her books, her half of the kitchen gadgets I never learned to use. "This is what you wanted," she said at the door. "No," I said. "What I wanted was a wife who didn't cheat on me with a Navy doctor and help him commit fraud on base. This is me dealing with what I got instead." She flinched, then recovered. "You'll regret choosing them over me," she said. "Maybe," I said. "But I'd regret choosing wrong a lot more." She left. The house echoed. For a few weeks after she moved out, I lived like a ghost. Work, home, reheated food, sleep, repeat. No music. No TV issue. Just the hum of the fridge and the occasional ship horn in the distance when the wind was right. Then something unexpected happened. The Navy promoted me. It started with an email from my CO's assistant. "CEO would like to see you. 1,400. Not bad news." That last line is important. "CEO would like to see you" without context is enough to make any officer reconsider every decision he's made since boot camp. I walked into his office right at 1,400, cover under my arm. "At ease, Jack," he said, waving me into a chair. "How you holding up?" "Been better, sir," I said honestly. "But I've also been worse." He nodded. "I won't pretend the last year hasn't sucked. For you. For everyone who cares about you. But I'm not here to talk about your marital status." He slid a folder across the desk. "I'm here to talk about your next set of orders." I opened it. Saw the words "promotion recommendation" in bold. "Captain?" I said, blinking. "You've been due," he said. "IA's report cleared you and highlighted how you handled the situation. Calm. Professional. No one at your level wants to live through what you did, but you just gave us a live case study in integrity. That matters." He leaned back. "The higher up you go," he said, "the more people expect you to protect your own comfort. You showed you'll protect the service instead. That's the kind of officer we need with more stripes on his sleeve." I swallowed a lump I hadn't realized was forming. "Thank you, sir," I said quietly. "Means a lot." "Don't thank me," he said. "Just don't turn into a jerk when you get the extra pay grade." "I'll try to only be a medium jerk," I said. He laughed. "That's the spirit." The promotion didn't magically fix everything. My house was still too quiet. Holidays were still weird. I still had to learn how to cook for one without eating like a raccoon over the sink. But there was a strange, sturdy clarity under all of it. I'd done the right thing when it was excruciating. I'd held the line when it would have been easier to look away. I'd let discipline be my shield instead of revenge. And that counted for something. Somewhere in there, during late nights on duty and early mornings with too much coffee, I started writing. At first, it was just journaling. Little reflections in a notebook, lessons I'd learned the hard way, conversations I'd had with junior sailors who came to me asking, "Sir, how do you deal with all this life stuff?" Then I turned a couple of those entries into longer essays. Then chapters. Then, one day, Torres looked at the growing stack of pages and said, "You know that's a book now, right?" "A very boring one," I said. "Dude," he said. You caught your wife cheating, took down a crooked dock, cooperated with Internal Affairs, got promoted, and you're writing about staying calm through it? That's not boring. That's Navy Oprah. Don't ever say Navy Oprah again, I said. But you might have a point. The title came to me on a rare day off, standing at the pier, watching the water go from choppy to smooth as the wind shifted. Calm waters, strong heart. Because that's what this weird, painful, strangely clarifying season had given me. Not a perfect life. Not a movie ending. But a calmer mind. A stronger heart. I wrote about the marriage without naming names. About the investigation without disclosing details that weren't mine to share. About how discipline isn't just saluting and shining your shoes, it's making the hard choice when your emotions are screaming for the easy one. I sent the manuscript to a small publisher that specialized in military memoirs and leadership books. Fully expecting them to go, "Cute, but no thanks." They said yes. The book didn't become some global phenomenon. But it did well in the circles that mattered to me. Sailors sent emails from ships, from overseas bases, from tiny little towns where they'd landed after getting out. "Sir, I thought I was the only one whose personal life exploded while in uniform. Reading how you stayed steady helped me get through my divorce. I gave your book to my CO after he almost covered up something. He read it. He reported it. Thank you." Those messages meant more to me than any rank ever will. Every once in a while, someone, usually a young officer who's just heard some version of my story through the grapevine, asks, "Do you regret it, sir? Turning her in? Going to Internal Affairs?" I think about the nights alone. The awkward questions. The whispers. The way the word affair still tastes bitter. Then I think about the sailors who look at me and see a man who didn't compromise when it counted. Regret doing the right thing? I say. No. Regret that it had to be done at all? Every day. They usually nod. They get it. Life at sea and life on land have one big thing in common: storms are guaranteed. You can't avoid them. You can only decide how you're going to ride them out. Elise thought the Navy would circle the wagons and bury her mistakes. She thought the uniform would protect her from consequences. Instead, the uniform protected something else. Its own integrity. And somehow, in the process, it protected mine too. I lost a marriage. I gained a clearer sense of who I am. A sailor. An officer. A man who can look at calm water without forgetting what it took to get through the storm. If you ever read my book someday, you'll see the dedication is simple. To anyone who's ever had their life capsize and thought, "This is it." It's not. Steady on. Because if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's this. The ocean doesn't care how many times you fall. It cares that you keep getting back up and steering forward. Calm waters don't mean you never faced waves. They mean you learned how to navigate them. And a strong heart? Well, that's what you get when you refuse to let the ships, and the people, that leave you define the sailor who stays. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.